It's happy times and places where two Doctor Who fans, one of them's me, TobY Hadoke, see if they can agree about the best things about a Doctor Who story.
Hi Toby, it's Derek here. Thank you so much for letting me participate in this. Although I'm normally a Star Trek fan, Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who, will always have a special place in my heart. And it's Tom Baker who is my doctor. The serial's my Nightmare of Eden. And over the years, it's had a critical lambasting from fans and reviewers for various reasons. But I would like people to give it a second try.
Well, welcome back. It is episode 4 of Nightmare of Eden. Will you be able to keep awake during it? You don't stay awake during a nightmare, do you? My friend Derek O'Brien has so far chosen 3 things. We have one more and a bonus to get to at the end. So let's see what part 4 has in store. I'm paused on the DVD between parts 3 and parts 4. And I'm going to press play in 3, 2, 1. And so, this title sequence only has 4 episodes to go after this, if you don't count Shada, which, as it wasn't broadcast, I think is perfectly acceptable to not count. Gosh, Shada was like the Holy Grail for many years. No, you can't move for Shadas. Bob Baker's only solo credit for Doctor Who. Now, I think some of Nightmare of Eden's bad reputation comes, as well as the odd sort of comic tone. Much of it comes from this episode, I would say. So it'll be interesting to think. I am enjoying watching it in good quality and on the big screen. And though Tom Baker has a very sweaty face, you do sort of get the impression that he might just sleep anywhere in that big long coat and shirt. And you don't think about such things as someone's personal hygiene when you're a kid, but as an adult you go, did he just spend ages in the same clothes asleep? I know he used to wander around with a toothbrush in his pocket and sort of, wherever I lay my hat, that's my home. That planet is moving, which I've never noticed before, because I've got it on quite a big screen at the moment. This is quite nice. I'm able to watch stuff bigger than I've ever seen it before. I think when I originally watched this, it might... because we didn't get a colour telly for a very long time. So, yeah, I think I would have originally watched this in black and white. Now, that's interesting because Diamond is calling it Hecate, and Tom Baker, I'm sure, later calls it the Hecate, which, of course, is, that's a way of pronouncing the name of the goddess, and probably Tom Baker got it. He said, well, it's Hecate, isn't it? And but everyone else has called it Hecate so far. Well, I don't care. I as we know, I think he was in a fairly strident mood when this was being made, which was one of the reasons that Alan Bromley, the director, who's I think it might have been his last job ever, so walks out of the studio never to return. So Graham Williams, the producer, directed. Okay, so Fisk, who is very much the chief of the 2 customs officers, has told Diamond he's got to stay put. Diamond's had to do that thing because he said, why are you on the ship? You were supposed to be here. So, I've come to get some stuff to deal with the Mandrels. But, of course, we've had a hint in episode 3 that Diamond is perhaps complicit in some of the nefarious shenanigans that are going on. So the Doctor looks like he disappeared in the gap between the ship and the ship in the ship, but he's okay, so that's fine. And oh yes, and Della's sort of helping out because, of course, the mandrels have been a little bit on the so the ship itself has got these sort of marauding monsters, and yeah, there are a few things that sort of go wrong in this episode, and it's odd because I don't really think that much about Della. She's not terribly exciting, but I don't think she does anything particularly wrong. I wish she'd give us an interview, though. Come on, Jennifer Lonsdale. As I say, I think she's some dignitary's wife now. I think she's posh. But that's all right. Tracy Louise Ward from Time Lash is posh. Lots of posh people have passed through Doctor Who. Nothing wrong with being posh. Doesn't mean you don't have to talk about your days. I'm sure she's got better things to do than talk to people about Nightmare of Eden. It would just be nice, but partially because so much of it is shrouded in mystery as to, it's not. I mean, I know a couple of people have talked about Tom Baker and Alan Bromley, not being simpatico, but not enough contributors have really sort of given testimony that we've got a picture that quite satisfies me, I would say. So this is interesting. So we're in episode 4, and solving the mystery of Stott, because of course she loves him. But this is an odd way to begin the climactic episode, where you've had a big bit of dialogue between Fisk and Dimmond, and then a big bit of dialogue between Romana and Della, and Tom Baker's doing what he likes best, which is not having to talk to anybody by himself and occasionally leer at the camera. And is that called an inchucaleza? So I quite like Dimmond's silvery suit, but the Doctor's sort of hiding, sort of in plain sight. No, that's okay. Some of the lighting here is nice. This set is nice and dark. The jungle set of Eden is nice and dark because, of course, I've got to. So what Dimmond's done there is he hasn't resisted being able to. And a very good response from the Doctor there, who's obviously very dour and dismissive about the profits of human suffering, but he only knows about that because Dimmond's basically gone, before I do, I'll just go check how much money I'm going to make out of this and leave it on the computer to show my complicity that was rather a convenient action. Oh, and the Doctor he sort of hides in the shuttle, doesn't he? Where only somebody that is really confident that they're not being followed. I think it's it's because it's not the biggest of shuttles, and the Doctor's pretty close. Okay. I can sort of see. It's interesting because this, as I say, I came into this going, I know it's got a bad reputation, but I rather like it. And then watching the first 3 episodes, I have had a sleep or two in between episodes 1 and 3 and episode 4. But it's curious that this is the last episode and it's been a bit talky and a bit clunky. And there seems to be a higher number of things to forgive in this episode than previously. Now, that might just be my change in mood between episodes 3 and 4, because I was loving it, but it seems to have slowed a little bit. Maybe things, because they'll have done it by set, won't they? Rather than, but I assume Alan Bromley, because Alan Bromley didn't I don't think missed out on too much of the production, but things get a bit frayed because Geoffrey Hinsliff, when he's talking to Trist, calls him Fisk, which is his own name, and they don't go again, which is a sort of sign of a bit of a strain on the time, if nothing else. You go, well, just carry on. People always call other people by their own name. But I mean, that's unthinkable now, isn't it? But yeah, I want to see some mandrels killing some passengers, and that hasn't happened yet. But I've got to think of but I've got to think of a favourite thing from this episode and a bonus favourite thing, which doesn't necessarily have to be from this episode. I was hoping to save, the idea of the planets on the CET machine, but I think Derek has sort of claimed that. So I got to find a couple. Yay, the Doctor's back. Oh, now I love it when K9 shoots people. I don't know why. It's like just a big childhood memory of mine. It's all very slow, though, isn't it? Just in terms of the pacing and the staging. Although, here's a nice wheeze. This actor is called Eden Phillips. So, do you think there was a casting call went out and he just went, well, I'm going to write in and go, look, come on, I won't be a nightmare, and if it's called Nightmare of Eden, you've got to give me the job. I don't know anything about him. As I say, we probably did look when we were doing the DVD commentary, because I know we were looking for mandrels, because we tried one of them was called Jan Merzanovsky, who was also in the Quatermass, the final Quatermass series, who we worked out must have been very old by that point, and I think we found his son. I don't know if we got as far as him. For some reason, I didn't know about Rob Goodman at that point, who's had a brilliant career as an actor, but was also a prolific extra. But and I only know Rob because he knows another comedian called Andrew O'Neill, and they're all into magic and all that. So Andrew put me in touch with Rob. But this was way after we'd done the DVD for this, and then Rob got cast in Listen after I'd interviewed him about being a mandrel, amongst other things. And he's had great parts in all sorts. Rob, he's been in Ripper Street and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. After he made the decision to stop being extra and just do featured acting work, and he made the transition, which is not as easy as you would think. So Eden Phillips has now been killed. As I said, I don't know anything about him. They're very frayed, aren't they, the mandrels? Although I do like the costumes, the faces and the eyes and everything. Yeah, so Trist now gets a bit cocky, doesn't he? I'm right behind him, yeah. I'm the bad guy now, in case you hadn't noticed before. And this kind of works now because, the Doctor, although again, that was quite slow, wasn't it? Everyone's pointing and stop, and it's just a bit chuggy. But plot-wise, it's working because the baddies are doing their thing, but the customs guys think the Doctor is the baddie, the mandrels are marauding, so the baddies are able to be getting away with their stuff. It's neatly plotted. If the pacing, as I say, is a little off, I like Trist's attempt to justify, and actually he's talking about stopping a species becoming extinct, and she says, I think a few million people becoming extinct is worse. But actually, that depends, because it's not about the whole of humanity. Extinct means, wiped out completely. So people dying of rats isn't wiping out the population, whereas he's talking about conserving, unique creatures and specimens. So in a way, the way that Della phrased that, I would say, is unfortunate. I love that, a bit of a laser gun and a shooting of a panel. But unfortunately, the limitations of drawing a laser onto existing action work here, where Della is shot in the neck and clutches her stomach. Because it's actually, you don't see, because angles look very different depending on where you are. So they were sort of slightly scuppered by that. But I did like the one that Trist shot the panel with. And K9 there has another laser beam. It's a high laser beam quotient, and I think there's a few in Horns of Nymon as well. She's wounded after being shot in the face, because that was the only place he could hit her. You can see why in some stories instead they just go for a gun that lights up at the end, because then you don't have to rationalize the direction the actor is pointing and the camera angle and all sorts of things, because you have to line up, a number of different things to get them right. He's handsome, isn't he, Barry Andrews? I do like the way that Tom Baker's Doctor just sort of wanders into places with supreme confidence, usually to then be disappointed. And he is a bit wayward, and there's going to be rather a famous wayward moment coming later. But I mean, this is the Doctor that I grew up with, and I didn't notice he was misbehaving. It's a payoff, isn't it? You get a mercurial, unpredictable actor. Sometimes he's going to behave unpredictably, and when he's on song, he is so good, and he's so naturally good. He's so naturally the Doctor. They're funny, aren't they, the Mandrills? What? Do we like them? I think those faces are fantastic. It's just the lack of bendy arms, the fact that you can see they're coming apart at the seams, and the fact that they've got flared legs. But other than that, what have the Mandrills ever done to you? And I like the sort of space setting and the amount of the back and forth between the spaceships and all of that sort of thing. Because that's something Doctor Who often forgot to do for periods of being a sort of, set in space. Because it's so fond of being on Earth, and for all the reasons that we know, and it does good historical drama in 20th century Earth with the Yeti on the loo in Tooting Bec. But it's fun to go to a spaceship and and of course he does the dog whistle thing, which is only a thing I knew about because of Doctor Who, the dog whistle. That's how I learnt about that. I walk my dog in the park, somebody's got a dog whistle. I like the mandrill noises. I love the green glowy eyes. The Doctor as a sort of Pied Piper. And I sort of like the way that the mandrills are compliant, until he stops whistling, and then they turn savage again, and now this bit is so let's talk about the jungle, because we like the jungle. I think that's a neat set, and the visual of the jungle in the lounge of a spaceship is a fantastic, beautiful piece of Doctor Who incongruity. But this one wonders if it was something like this that Alan Bromley might have said, "Are you sure about this, Tom?" And Tom Baker, "I'm an alien. I'm a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Casterbarus. We always say, ooh, my arms, ooh, my legs, ooh, my everything. Wouldn't it be witty if I came on with the arms of my jacket torn in half?" I mean, that's the comic timing of him looking sort of slightly frazzled and torn apart, but having succeeded, and then the monster coming and him pegging it is very, very funny. I think it's the delivery of the "ooh, my arms, my legs, my everything," and the "oh" is that's, I think, an actor with nobody reining him in. And the screwdriver gag is very, very funny. But the problem is that, you see, I think gags like that work better if everything else around you is deadly serious, because you've just had the bit where Tom Baker has been, skirting with an offence contrary to the the actor's code, to then have the screwdriver gag after that. It's. I think the screwdriver gag would have benefited more from coming in not coming off the back of something very, very silly, but it's still a very good joke. Although I do take the point that Romana and the Doctor, people who aren't fans of the sort of the intellectual Cambridge, too clever by half feel that perhaps you have if you've got Douglas Adams and Tom Baker and Lalla Ward, all mixed together. But I think it works. I think you can be a bit too clever for your own good if you travel through space and time, saving the universe, and know loads of stuff. And they are very, very funny. I'm going to say Hecate. It's Hecate. Oh, I'm going to say Hecate. Okay. And he's he's in full villain mode now. Louis Fiander, having sort of been playing I'm a bit dirty scientist, is now going, now I'm the villain. So there. But I like the way that the CET machine is used as the solution to the escaping villains. So that's nicely plotted and brings it all back together. And that shifting video effect is very, very good. Very, very simple. Yes, he is hoist by his own petard. And of course it's good because Fisk comes in all critical, and so he gets a sort of comeuppance because he's never trusted the Doctor and he's been a bit of a Burke throughout. But in delivering his quarry to him, the Doctor sort of defeats him in a way that at least in terms of finding the solution and pricking his pomposity a little bit. So that's a great, and this I think, I mean, I'm anticipating that this is going to be one of my choices. Is Tom Baker, for all his silliness, is brilliant here. Not even looking at him. Go away. Yeah. Great. Love it. That's for all the messing about, when we're talking about intergalactic drug dealing and the very real dangers of drugs, which, and I sort of like the way that this never gets finger waggy, don't do drugs, kids, but it does do a kind of, the scale of destruction that can be wrought by these things, is enormous, without it ever seeming sort of preachy or like adults. Sometimes, a thing made by adults that's got a message that is particularly relevant to kids or teenagers, can sometimes seem a bit like the geography teacher dancing at the school disco and trying to explain stuff to the kids on their level. It doesn't even actually bother to do that. It takes it up a level. It doesn't even try and. I think today, if you did that, you'd maybe have a teenage character or whatever who becomes hooked on the vraks or something, or who becomes involved in the smuggling, and in order to sort of say, oh, teenagers, this is relevant to you. This is just this I think rather sensibly sort of ascends above that slightly. Interesting. I was struggling a bit at the top. I am a bit tired. I almost didn't do this tonight, but I'd enjoyed it so much the other night that I thought, come on, let's get the rest of Nightmare of Eden out of the way. But I was a little bit tired. Roger Can, yeah, we didn't get the designer either. I know Rupert Jarvis, the costume designer, is no longer with us. But I don't know if he was. I don't know if he had died by when we did the commentary, or whether he was another one who just didn't want to talk to us about it. But I don't think we didn't get the impression it was all related to the fact that it had been a struggling production and that nobody wanted to say anything because they wanted to spare Alan Bromley's blushes or Tom Baker's blushes or whatever. It was just more a coincidence of lots of people with a reason not to want to do it that was actually nothing to do with that. As I say, Rob Goodwin, when I did interview him, didn't even know that the director had walked off. So anyway, yeah, so I struggled with that a bit at the beginning, though, because I don't know, it just didn't seem, having built quite a lovely climax at the end of episode 3. Its gears sort of stuck a bit at the top. But I still think it's a great story. I think it's a really interesting story. I think some of the attempts at humour really work. The odd one doesn't. I think, actually, considering it was a troubled production, it only sort of frays at the edges really in episode 4, depending, I suppose, on how well disposed you are towards the Mandrills, who I think look okay. So my thing for episode 4 is Tom Baker's reaction to Trist when Trist tries to justify drug smuggling and Doctor Who just goes, I'm not even going to look at you. And my other thing is, I think, going to be the jungle, because that encapsulates some nice lighting. I was going to say the lighting because some of the shadowier parts of the spaceships are nicely lit as well, but actually a lot of the corridor stuff and the main bridge stuff is fairly Doctor Who 101 or whatever. But I think the jungle, because you have that thing of the jungle set in the spaceship lounge, which is a beautiful piece of Doctor Who incongruity and taking two fairly straightforward things and smashing them together, and therefore making them really interesting, but also sort of quite quaint as well. But also it was a decent set, considering they didn't look to have much space with it, and the lighting in it was very, very nice. So yeah, the jungle, Eden itself. So I wonder what my friend Derek, who's been a very polite and game contributor, and I'm pleased because he's he's really a Star Trek fan, but he clearly knows enough about Doctor Who.
And the fourth thing I like about this serial was the end, when the bad guys were caught, and they tried to get the Doctor to support them by justifying that they were smuggling these drugs in order to fund their scientific research. And he wouldn't even look at them. He just simply says, go away. Go away. After overplaying the character throughout the 4 chapters, at the end here, he's just not giving them anything. Tom Baker is just chilling. And it chills me now just thinking about it. And that is overall really what I liked about this. Years before Just Say No became prevalent in the cultural zeitgeist, we had an uncompromising, mature story against drugs. You had nothing. There was nothing to sort of justify. This was simply, no, this is wrong. I don't care what you were doing it for. I don't care who's, no matter what you could say about, the people that were choosing to do this. No, this is it. It's wrong. It was such a bold, strong, unimpeachable message, really. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. Watching it now, again, after so many years. Yes, the effects were bad. Yes, the direction was a bit shoddy. The costumes were laughable. But still, if you can ignore all of that and even just listen to it, it is an amazing story. And it is something that's worth rewatching, or at least listening to. Listen, thanks again for this, Toby. I do appreciate this. Bye-bye.
Oh, you don't need to appreciate it, Derek. You've done me a favour, and I think, and it's very nice. I was very keen to get as I say, there will be American people on this podcast because I've got friends over in the States, but this is an American who has lived over here for a long time. So somebody who has, who was introduced to this, from a foreign culture, but a culture that he came to understand and be a part of because he's lived here for years now. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective. So I wasn't sure which one he'd choose in the first place. And then I like the fact that he chose this. And so, I mean, I did the drugs thing, but I didn't do the anti-drugs thing because it was more the concept and the fact that it was tied up with the mandrels. Although I did mention the anti-drugs thing and how effective I thought it was, I don't think that counts that I chose it. So that was his overall thing. So he chose the same thing as me for episode 4, but his overall thing, even though I alluded to it and I sort of touched on it in episode 3, I don't think that really counts. So I haven't won again. So I think Derek, if he wants, is legally allowed to have me killed. So there we go. So that's what happens when you're dabbling in drugs, kids. You get into all sorts of trouble. So I'm sorry if I think I started this commentary a little tired and also a little. I was sort of waiting for the episode to kick in and to keep pointing out things that were wrong with it. But I do overall, and Derek was a very eloquent advocate, and I think he's right. And I know this is a story that is seen as being at the sort of fag end of Tom Baker's era before the slightly late burgundy flowering of the slightly anomalous season 18, where he's sort of clearly on his way out, but and takes a slight change in direction from the ascendance into lunacy that occurs between season 16 and 17, where he does get critics of Tom Baker I think can fairly point out that he does sometimes push it a little bit too far. And this story is one of those occasions with the oh my, that was the oh my arms, oh my legs, oh my everything was not going to be a favourite moment that I chose. And yet the go away is as good as anything any doctor does anywhere ever. So, do you want that? For those listening rather than watching, I'm moving my hand in a straight line. Or do you want that? I'm indicating highs and lows. It depends whether you want a roller coaster. Oh, well, I suppose Tom Baker is a bit like a drug, isn't he? He's, when you get high, you get really, really high, and then when you get low, you can get quite low. He is Doctor Who. He's brilliant. He's a really good actor. He's a colossal intelligence. But occasionally he tries jokes that are ill-advised. And you know what? The only way you know what jokes work is as a stand-up. My goodness, you sometimes have to throw stuff out there, and stuff that seems like such a good idea. As soon as you say it out loud, you go, and the audience let you know it wasn't a good idea, you go, I knew that wasn't a good idea, but you didn't know it until you'd done it. But then when you've done it, it feels like you knew it all your life, and what the hell did you say it for? And I don't know, it's a comforting, it looks comfortable to me. It looks like the Doctor Who I grew up with, because it is. So look, I hope that was interesting for you. As I said, so I'm a little tired. I'll go and have a little pick me up. And no, I won't, because drugs are bad. So if anyone asks you to do any between now and the next happy times and places, just say no. Right. I'm going to go to bed now. Don't have nightmares on or off anywhere. Thanks for listening. Goodbye. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places with me, TobY Hadoke, and my special guest, Derek O'Brien, who has written 60 Star Trek Universe stories on his blog, usssurefoot.blogspot.com. So please do check those out. Thank you to patrons of this podcast, who include Mark Owen, Pascal Zierka, Sydney Wilson, John Williams, Rich Wiggins, Kevin West, Peter Ware, Gavin Ware, Alistair Wallace, Gary Wales, John Turner, Sidney Trout, Paul Taylor-Greaves, Adam Stone, Dave Stevens, David Spencer, Richard Smith, Paul Shields. The music for this podcast was specially composed by Dave Gates, and the podcast artwork is by Dylan Patterson. Become a patron and get early releases, exclusive material, and guaranteed survival when I become king by going to patreon.com/TobY Hadoke, where you can subscribe for as little as £3 per month. You do get charged straight away, by the way. It's a sort of one-size-fits-all, so most of the stuff is available at the lowest tier, although there is the odd carrot slightly further up the tree. You can also do kofi.com/TobY Hadoke for a one-off payment, but I understand that times are tough, and I'm very, very grateful to you for listening and downloading. So look, if you are not in a position, or even not inclined, that's absolutely fine, to pay, how about just giving me a little bit of your time and going to your podcast provider and giving these a 5-star review, and perhaps putting some nice comments as well. That just helps to make my algorithms tip-top. And I like to parade my tip-top algorithms about town. Makes me feel good. Follow these podcasts on Twitter at Hadoke Podcasts. And you can go to my website, tobyhadoke.com, which has got all sorts of things on it. I've got a YouTube channel. Love it if you subscribe to that. And if you like live comedy, go to twitch.tv/XS Malarkey. That's an X and then an S and then Malarkey. Malarkey, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. GMT, and I'll be presenting 4 special guests from the comedy circuit from around the world. There's also an archive and clips of stuff there any time of day or night. So if you're at a loose end and you need a laugh, twitch.tv/XS Malarkey.